Okay. Hello, everybody. Those who are the few who are here and those who are already logged in online. Uh, this should be the third, third, fourth session of the year. And we are happy that you could join us and those who have taken the time to leave their other schedules. Karibu sana. So this is Karakana Online, but sometimes some people call us Karakana Initiative. And this year we're focusing on soft skills and the other skills. Sometimes we want to call the non-technical skills that we focus on mostly on our artistry, our creativity, but this time we want to focus on the other skills that as creatives, we do not give them that much of attention, we do not give them that much time. So between January and February, we have looked at running a creative business. We have looked at purpose and personal branding and how those two interact. And today we are going to be talking about effective communication. One of the biggest challenges that artists and creatives have is we have a certain DNA. You know, we are considered introverts. Sometimes watu wanasema tumechizi. Sometimes people think, no, they don't understand us actually. So the most important thing is that our facilitator today is going to be taking us through effective communication. I was just asking him what's the difference between communication and effective communication. So I hope that this session, for the few of you who are here and those who will be following online and those who will be watching later, you are going to have a lot of value that is going to elevate your creative work, your profession, what you do, your interaction with others, selling yourself, making your point known, telling your story, etc., etc. One of the things that helped me most the other day, I even shared on social media, was my father was an English teacher. And every time he was always correcting us, whether he will correct us with mistakes because of pronunciation, sometimes shower will become chower, but he will still try to correct us. But one of the things that helped me a lot is to make writing, which is another form of communication, very easy and natural for me. As an artist, as a creative, that if you tell me we need to do a proposal, 10, 15 pages in the next 1 hour, I will not break a sweat. You know, I will just do it very fast and all that. My dad used to give me briefs for composition when I was in boarding school, class 6, class 7, class 8. Anatuma sanduku la posta, Peter. I write on foolscap or kwa karatasi exercise book and send back home. He marks and sends it back. That was around 92, 93, 94. You know, and so also, of course, even reading books. Reading books helps enrich your language. So movies also can help, but reading has a totally different, deeper experience and all those kind of things. So today is a very exceptional day because communication is at the core. It's at the core of the skills that artists and creatives need. So Alex, tafadhali kuja. This is Alex Gabriel. He's a photographer like me, but I will let him because he gets paid to communicate. He gets paid to talk to, but they say, alifanya tutoe screen hapa. Because I'm telling him, where is your presentation? It's like, no. I talk, so he has his presentation in his mind, and I hope that we are going to have a very good time. So, tumpatie clap kidogo so that we can encourage him. And the floor is yours.
Thank you, Director. Good evening, everyone. At least the people who are here, good evening. Right, and also to the online audience, good evening, and really happy to be here. My name, as you've heard, is Alex Gabriel. A lover of clear communication and a lover of life. Well, just before we start, allow me to pose a question or a thought, however you look at it. And because I've been told what the audience today is creatives and artists, and yes, I flow in that particular space, but I would also want us to open our minds up, not just to think, to limit yourself not to invite somebody else who is not necessarily in that sector of creative and creatives and or artistic in whichever way. Think of whichever space of work or industry that you are in where you require a little bit of creativity and artistic tendencies. So this conversation is really open to everyone, right, in one way or another. But maybe specific to the artists and the creatives. You're looking to opening up your market for the work that you do. But your work then is silenced. How is it silenced? It's not receiving the audience or the views, if you're looking at it from a social media point of view, as people today are running for the views, the likes and whatnot, or the testimonials, that you would expect, or the sales from a sales point of view. It is receiving silence, or it's being silenced. Why is that the case? Is it because you lack the talent? Is it because you lack the skill? Is it because, as they say, you don't know the who is who? In most cases and not, we will discover as we go along how communication, and in this case, effective communication, is such a powerful tool to open up your avenues for your work as creatives or artists, in this case, right? So we will look into two key things today. I hope the time will allow us. We will discuss an area, what I consider the foundation of effective communication. And we will equally try to demystify really what effective communication is all about. And as we delve into this particular area, we are going to look at the communication process, right? While communication is equally perceived or looked at as a way of public speaking, as a conversation, we are going to start on what I consider the root of effective public speaking, right? But that's not really what we are going to delve into much, but we are going to look at the roots of communication, which in this case is communication process. And if time allows us, we're also going to look at communication styles, right? How do we listen? What kind of a communicator am I? And we'll go very deep into that. Again, Alex Gabriel, an artist in the area of photography, a designer as well, with a little bit of a background in technical field, but today passionate more on the area of photography, school photography and golf photography. That's where you'll find me a lot, but open to learning and exploring all avenues of artistic world. So going straight into the point of communication process, or better still, why is communication important? What's the distinction between effective communication and communication? And I think Derrito attempted to, sort of throw that spanner into the works. Communication is one thing for us to be able to express, right? The use of words, use of body language, right? But not with an intent of receiving the kind of feedback hoped for. So you can open, if you're audible, if you can speak, you can. If you're using facial expression, you can. There are many ways you can communicate. But the most important thing, whichever this mode or channel that you're using for communicating, is it able to deliver an effective message to the audience or the person expected to receive this message? More importantly, the final output, the expected output. Is it achieved, right? So communication enables us, right, to be able to effectively communicate a message, right? And it could be from a working environment. A case in mind would be with our colleagues, right, as creatives, right? Some of us could be running businesses, right? And we have teams that we're working with. And you're being called upon to offer your services, e.g. as a photographer. Maybe it's a wedding. It is one thing to communicate and call on photographers to come and join you, but if you do not communicate what exactly it is that they're coming to do, you may attract the wrong type of photographers, right? Why? Because the photography world as we know it, and this is just but an example that I'm using, right, is made up of all manner of photography, kind of assignments. It could be architectural, it could be engineering, it could be whatnot. So for you to be clear on the kind of work or task that is ahead of us that need to be executed, it is important then to have effective communication. And that's what we are going to look at today. The whole process of communication, right? And there are various stages to that, all right? So effective communication is the ability to communicate clearly, and more importantly, then being able to achieve the expected outcome. The vice versa is true. When it is ineffective, right, two things could happen. Either there is friction, or you do not achieve the expected outcome. So you have thwarted expectations by the audience or by your team members, right? So the ability as creatives and artists to be able to communicate clearly on what the type of a task it is, who it is that you're communicating with, is very, very important. Again, effective communication comes into play when we understand who is my audience. And this we'll be looking at the segmentation of age, gender, cultural orientations, right? Because then when I'm communicating to a Gen Z today, it's definitely going to be different from the way I communicate with a millennial, all right? And being able to have that distinction will help us in achieving, finally, what I'm calling the expected outcome. Getting into the gist of our conversation, the communication process. It starts with one, the sender, right? The sender. And who is the sender in this case? So you have a message, you have a communique that you want to send out. You have something you want to relay to the public, to your colleagues, to the general world. It starts with a person, you, me, right? The sender. And the question then is, how often do we ever think about the idea that I have of the next music, of the next skit, or of the next, whatever it is in this space that you want to communicate? Do you sit back to think through, as a sender, what is my current mental state? Am I in a state that allows me to communicate clearly what I want the world to hear? What is it that I want the world to hear? Substitute the word world with your workmates, with your clients, with your whoever, right? Substitute that, okay? What is my current state? Am I fatigued right now when I'm trying to put together my message? Is it even so clear in my mind before I go out to communicating it? Have I done the necessary research on a subject matter, right, that I want to express to the world? Have I taken notes on what I want to express? Have I thought of which community that I want to reach to? Have I thought of what kind of language to use? What kind of body language besides the verbal, the facial expressions? Have I thought of all that? Have I thought of the examples that I may want to use to make it easy for ingestion of this message by my audience? Right? So we all start with the sender. What is your current state as at right now? Right? So you are the source, the sender. Right? And feel free to stop me along the way in case you may want just to get a clarification on any area. Then now we have the message. Right? So I'm the sender. Right? How well versed am I as a sender? Allow me to belabor that point. The source, to talk about filmmaking, if I'm not versed or exposed to that industry. I'm likely to make blunders. That's then when I need to know, I need to have a team member who is better versed in this industry so that the message that is going to be sent out is clear and doesn't miss out on the key components for the film that needs to be made. Right? Then we go to number 2, the message. So it's a film that we want to make, that we want to produce. What message do we want to relay? right? What message do we want to relay? It could be social justice. But what about social justice? Right? So this is a message. Let's go and somebody give me an example of a message. Not necessarily of social justice, at least for those of us here who are with me or maybe even online. Give me a message that you may want to relay as an artist or a creative. Climate change, right? So how do you construct that message by, number one, demystifying or making it clear what climate change is all about? The assumption sometimes is that everyone understands what climate change is. And that is a very interesting subject that you've brought up. It's not a very old over conversation. It may have been there, but it's not a conversation that was very prominent as it is today. So assuming I want the same message to reach my grandmother who is 80 years of age, is climate change the kind of wording that I would use? Or better still, how would I make it easier for her to understand what climate change is all about? So even before the message is out in the public, those are some of the things we need to ask ourselves. My audience, what is their cultural orientation? Could it be, let me use another one. We want to market, and with all love and respect to our brothers and sisters in the Muslim community, we want to make a movie or a film on that we are using probably to market sausages. All right? Are we cognizant of their religious beliefs and whether this is kind of a message that one will achieve its expected outcome? So you want to increase your sales. So this could be a promo, not even a film. It's a promo, a video promo, right? And you were targeting the larger market, but not thinking through about the various localities that this message will be related to and the audience. What is their religious background? Right? That then you need to appreciate. Right? Is it halal? Kind of a sausage. So that then you demystify or you break it down. It's not just sausage pork, but this is halal. So that then you're able to capture everyone across board. But if you merely just leave it as sausage, then you leave out another potential market segment that you'd have easily been able to have won over. The language you use on your messaging and the need to break down your message. So what does that mean? That we need not to be in a rush to just construct something out of the need of making money. The financial angle is good, all right? And yes, I've interacted with a lot of us in this particular sector. Our first thought sometimes is the money that I'm going to make. And so when we meet with Peter, right, Peter tells me I'm going to make XYZ dollars, all right? But why doesn't he make that XYZ dollar? Maybe because of, one, the number one, what we talked about, the sender. What state was I in when I thought about this? What is the driving factor? Two, the messaging. Have I broken it into small chunks? Have I done my homework? I can be able to reach the larger market without excluding anyone, right? So that is number three. Then number two, for those of us who are taking notes, right? Then there's another number three. There's another point, which is number three, encoding, right? Encoding. Maybe somebody can just try and... What is your understanding? You know, if you could help me, let's have an interactive session here. What is your understanding of the word encoding? Any answer could just be right, and better still, it could be wrong. We are here to learn, I guess. You know, it's an iron sharpening iron, right? It's an iron sharpening iron, because I also want us to engage with the online community, right? What's your understanding of encoding? Putting things together. So it's like packaging. Right. I love that. So, yes. Breaking down. Right. Question then I have, what would then be decoding be about? Food for thought. Food for thought. Food for thought. No, you have not missed it. Food for thought. All right? All right? If there is putting together, which could be encoding, what is putting apart or separating? Right? Could that maybe be part of the process? Could it be part of what decoding could mean? All right? But let's get back to encoding. So we have the source, the sender. We have the message. And we have encoding. And yes, to an extent, encoding has been, somebody has tried to explain to us or share with us. It's the putting together. Right? Now, how are we putting together our message as artists, as creatives? Right? Is it in form of a poster? Is it a video promo? Is it an audio podcast message? How are we encoding? But then also being guided by what we have already discussed, who is my audience? How are they going to consume this? If it's the general public, what constitutes the general public? Right? There are those then, when you encode the message in English, they will be able to decode it. There are those when you encode it in Swahili, then they will be able to decode it. There are those when you write it in Chinese, like I would, Yeah. Right. I love the smile, yeah, the whole idea of it getting us engaged, right? I may or may not be able to decode it, right? How am I encoding my message with an intention of reaching again to the Gen Z, the millennial, and all these other generational, angles? How am I packaging it? Am I also thinking through that if assuming I'm going to use a video, and yes, I want to have it running on a TV set, is there electricity if I'm targeting the larger world or larger audience, somebody who somewhere could be in a remote area where probably electricity is still a big deal? What would be a substitute? Am I limiting my message, the encoding of this message, just to one form of a media? Or am I being broad in my thinking? That yes, poster could be effective in that remote area, but then while a poster could be effective, what language do I use to make it easy to articulate, to understand, to interpret, and to make sense out of it? Do I need to create it in Canva? Or if you hail from where I hail from, NY, New York, Nyeri, do you have to use, Kikuyu? Right? Okay? What, with that particular media that I'm going to use, to encode my message, am I limiting myself to one or two or three? Or do I need to think broadly so that then I don't miss out on anyone that ought to receive this particular message? Right? I hope I'm not losing anyone so far. Right? Then let's move on to another point. The channel. So years back, right? I see we have a mix of audience here. Probably the radio, national radio, with the 4 batteries or 2 batteries. Now I can see those who are smiling. I can tell the age bracket. All right? Those that didn't smile, don't you worry. We had a box. Years back. And it had batteries, and you had to turn it, to receive the signal, That was the thing then. Right? Then we progressed, and then we came to the TV. Right? And just for me to tell green, beyond white and black, then we would put something in on the screen. Again, I can tell. There are those who are smiling, and I can tell also maybe from the online audience, we had to put something there. Those were the channels that probably we could use back in the day. It could have been also the print media. Right? The newspapers, they still exist. Right? But those were what was mostly used then, and that while they are being used today, are we still stuck to what was effective then, meeting the needs of that time? Or are we keen to appreciate that there are other channels today that have come with time, right, that we need also to incorporate? Now, within the space of creatives and artists, I know I'm not just necessarily talking to the millennials or Gen Zs. I'm also talking to my father and my mom, respectively so. Are you stuck to the old ways of when at the leadership level of the creative business that you're running or the outfit that you're running, that you're stuck to the old newspaper for the love of it, still effective, still stuck to the radio, still stuck to just the mere TV, and you keep off from social media, such as the TikTok, the Facebook, the Instagram, right? Are you stuck merely to those and not embracing this? What does that mean to the message then that you're relaying? That it is only constructed and targeted for then a certain audience. All right? Unknowingly maybe, when you're doing so. Because you have not allowed yourself then to learn the new trends. And so what eventually happens, that as a sender you were in the right state, you had put together your thoughts, you knew exactly what you want to communicate, right? Then you brought together this beautiful message, well summarized, crisp, right? You encoded it, right? But then when it comes to the channel, you miss it. So what happens? A certain audience is left out. So the first four, perfect, got it. But until you get to the channel to be used, you leave it out. The other day I was talking to someone and I was telling them, my Facebook page, I'm so stressed because it has been hacked, long story short. And they looked at me and be like, who uses Facebook? And I'm thinking to myself, duh. Like Facebook is the real thing, That while I know I have IG and whatnot, but I just didn't know that up to this point in time, that yes, it serves, Facebook is effective, but to a certain audience. Right? Similarly, the kind of content that I publish on Facebook versus what I probably would publish on IG, right? Or TikTok would be completely different. The language I use on one hand when I'm using LinkedIn, right? And the message I will use on TikTok is completely different. Why? Because of the audience. Remember we spoke about the word segmentation. So we are not only segmenting it from a gender, we are segmenting it from a point of age. We are segmenting it on the basis of career and profession. So it is not just merely sitting down with an idea and a thought, but we need to be thinking through all these things that we have so far mentioned. For us to eventually have what we are attempting to achieve, effective communication. So if you and I are merely being driven by the money, why are we not making the money? Could it be as a result of not embracing what we are now today discussing, the mechanics of effective communication, right? So that is channel. Then now somebody earlier on talked about, I think they may have seen my notes or something, decoding, right? Decoding, right? We spoke about the source, the sender. We spoke about, what did we talk about? The message. We spoke about encoding. We spoke about channel, right? And now we are talking about decoding. How am I unpacking it? Right? How is your audience, the end recipient, the recipient of this thing that you have put together for 1 week, for 1 month, for several months, How am I going to decode it, unpack it? Did I use the right language? Right? Did I use the right media? The right channel? Did I omit the newspaper just because I know Kenya, if it's only Kenya, and we are not limiting ourselves to a good country where the youth are the majority, did we just limit ourselves to not even Facebook anymore? And looking at the segmentation in my audience here, all right. I would easily leave out a number of us and maybe target this, and this particular, they may not be just the main fit. There are others who are a good fit, but we have ignored them. What if an email could have been a more ideal, but we left it out? But even, and since I've touched on email, how did we construct our email? Did it have an introduction? This is when we go back and appreciate our composition teachers, right? The things we are like, I'm never going to use this, right? I'm going to be a creative when I grow up. I'm going to be this. But why do I need to understand how to structure a message? Now, here it is coming to bite us at a later point in life, where did I introduce? What type of a salutation did I even use? Remember, first impression. The principle of first impression. We all know about it, yeah? Right? How I present myself, how I come before you. Now, it could be in words, in person, right? What is the first impression that I create? That determines how I'm going to unpack this particular message. Was it a message that needed to be decoded if it was relayed in person? You see, we spoke about all these electronic form of communication, but we forgot one, the in-person. Now, I'm coming from a background, like I mentioned, technical background, and with all the love for that, I'm a firm believer that you can never substitute human touch with technology. Right? So let's not deceive ourselves because we are creatives and we feel we are on the, we lean more towards technology and the technology, what it brings, the tools and the whatnot, that we forget that our human touch is still as effective as was then. Right? So what are some of these instances, depending on the audience you want to reach, will be a TikTok message be effective if you're dealing with 80-year-old and 90-year-old, and you making a trip to where they are located and having a one-on-one with them? I'm pausing to give us a chance to ponder through that, right? So the one-on-one still remains a channel that need to be still used, but equally, when do I use it? What kind of a message, what instances do I get to use it? Excuse me. Right? So decoding. That's another aspect that we need to be aware of. Then now there's the receiver. So we have looked at how is it going to be decoded? Have we thought of whether those, they have internet? How you have put together a beautiful promo video size of a WhatsApp, and you have sent it, right? And if it meets somebody like my grandma who says she cannot even read SMSs until I send her M-Pesa, right? So if she cannot read an SMS, what makes you think WhatsApp is anything of her concern? And here you have put together a beautiful message via WhatsApp, relayed by how many? Have you taken time to ask yourself, in Kenya alone, how many users or people are using smartphones? Right? Is it just because you are in the urban setup, could be, that where you may be located, right? That because you interact with people who majority have a smartphone, then you make an assumption that somebody else in another region in the country, that the majority also have that. You easily could be deceiving yourself. Right? And then again, what happens? You miss out on a big time opportunity. So do I then marry a promo in form of a video that can go via WhatsApp so that it reaches those that have got video, ease of downloading and watching a video via a smartphone, and still an SMS? Could it still be effective in helping you meet your objective, when then you think about that other person found in a certain locality, not because they cannot afford the smartphone, but what if internet penetration is not there? Even in the urban setup, we still have issues with internet. In most cases are not. Right? So what about that person? So could an SMS still be as effective as this? What wording have you used? Now, if you have interacted with government officials, they are very particular, right? And there are people to learn from on formalities, on how to write formal, how to communicate, They are very good at it, The sir, the madam, right? How do you start your message for it to catch the attention of that person? Or did you forget the E.G. whatever and all those alphabets that go behind and in front of the title, right? Did you miss out on them, and then what does that do? That message is not captured by somebody who could have easily been a target for you and a client, a potential client, just because you forgot to use. So thinking again through the receiver. Right? Let's say you're also looking at in-person communication. Are you coming to their place of work to communicate something about demise of a loved one, for instance? Is that the right place if assuming it's an industry? Right? Or better still, the receiver is going through a low season in their lives. Right? Allow me to use a classic example a pastor friend of mine would use. It's easy as Christians, to go out there, for those of us who are, exposed to crusades back in the day, and say that God will bless you, do this and do that. But this person is starving. You're telling them about a motor vehicle. You're telling them about a house. But in actual sense, this person says, can you first feed me? The basic, right? Somebody has just said it. The basic. Have you understood the current orientation of the receiver of this particular message? What is the immediate need? Right? Another example, an NGO visited a certain community, and they noted women were walking so long, or kids actually. No, it was women who were walking long distances to go fetch water. And so this NGO ran back, put together a beautiful proposal. It was sent here and there. And they came and decided, let's sink a borehole right in the heart of this community so that these women don't have to go very far to fetch water. And when it was, sunk and it was ready for use, the women still went about for the long distance. Somebody was curious to know why. And the women came back. We don't mind the walk. It is our time as women to go and share and talk. We don't leave our homes as often as our men leave. Our men are hunters. They leave the confines of our village every morning. The only instance I get to leave is when I'm going to fetch water. That's when I get to meet with my fellow woman. So your receiver is equally as important to understand where they are, what are their needs. Immediate, as somebody has said, basic. Are you providing a solution as an artist, right, that is not applicable in this particular area? Right? You're talking about, somebody give me an example of a solution as an artist you may want to provide. Online classes, good. So somebody in a very remote place in this country, you have the right content, right? My online audience, right? You have the right content, you have put it together, you have come to Karakana, you have talked to the management here, they have helped you to put these things beautifully. But this person is found in a place where they cannot access internet, they cannot access TV, right? Have you thought through? Again, I keep on belaboring this point. Now you can tell the NY New York Nyeri person is manifesting, right? Right? If you got it, you got it. Right? All right? The need to understand and for your communication to be effective, it's just besides knowing how to use your tools of trade, but can you also look at communication as a tool of trade? You are acquainted to the camera, to your laptop. You have all those tools installed, the Photoshops of this world, the whatnot, the whole Adobe suite. But you are not taking time to practice effective communication, which is the master tool in reaching out to the potential client and meeting the need of your client and even so that potential client. How much time do we invest in learning the right approaches to effectively communicate as artists? Because while a client will come to us as a creative, and you'll show them that you went to XYZ institution and this is where you studied and you have held this position and but how do you meet them at a personal level? What emotions do you evoke? What emotions do you evoke with how you're communicating? This is a good challenge to us as creatives and as artists. And as we're reaching towards the end of the communication process, the other most important component is feedback. Feedback. It's said that sometimes the techie people plus the creatives and artists, we seem to have it all together. Right? And our brains spin in a certain way, and we are more or less like solution providers. And so the ability to sit and take in feedback is not the first thing that we do. Correction, right? As creatives. Because what you think the client needs, you try to force it down their throats. But while you have made this amazing presentation, do you turn your back on them and walk away? Or do you engage them and allow them to give you feedback on what it is you have shared with them? And even more importantly, can they even resonate with what you have said? Could it be that you have used a lot of jargon? Right? You've come around and you said, how do you do? Well, it could have just been as easy. Good morning. Jambo. Could that just have been the feedback that would have helped you to tune your script? Because then you have listened to what resonates with them. So while our brains, as it is said, as creative spins in a certain way, and solutions are almost always at our fingertips, the reason why, maybe why we are missing out on some of these beautiful opportunities is because we are quick to turn our back once we have made our presentation and don't go out to get feedback. You have made a design of a beautiful magazine, but you don't even offer a draft. So you walked out of the boardroom, you are told it's an annual report, you've seen another one that was made, or the other one that you made for the client who was happy with it. It was a financial institution, but this now client is in the medical fraternity, right? The graphics you'll use are not the same as would be relatable by the financial institution, institution, or the consumer of an financial institution, client. So you borrow this and bring it here. Did you take time to get their thoughts on what they would want featured besides the narrative? We are using the example of a magazine, an annual, right? So besides the narrative that is going to be on that document, have you thought through, by sitting with them, in getting feedback on the kind of graphics to use? Right? That while you could show a woman, say for instance, and this is a medical point of view, and you're talking about, mother and child, wellness and whatnot, but it could be showcasing a mother breastfeeding a child and showing part of her body. A consumer here is okay with them for that kind of an image, but the same message with no ill intent on the other end, showing a part of the body of a mother is a no-no. So have you sat with your client to understand what kind of a graphic is acceptable across board? Right? So that is on feedback. Context as our last item. So we have the content. Let me add the word content and context. Right? Because of where we sit, we have the content in most cases than not. But it is equally easy to get out of context. We have the content, but have you ever found yourself in a situation, you've been told, I want a photo, e.g., of, say, by one of the telcos could be, and they want to feature someone in a certain community, let's say a Maasai, for instance, standing on one leg, right, holding a stick and whatnot, and you're like, I got it. Right? So you have articulated a part of the assignment, but you go take a model, with all the love for the models in our country, right, who is in a miniskirt, and you place them in a Maasai setup and hoping that the Maasai community will appreciate. And I'm using Maasai community, as an example. It's relative. It's relative, right? Right? That could be equally the Kikuyu, it could be the Costarians, it could be, You have the content. It was an image that was supposed to be used by my client, but context. So it becomes out of context because you take it there and they're like, why are you showing us a half-naked human being? Even though the intention was right. Out of context. Right? So going back, we spoke about the sender. We spoke about the message. We spoke about channel. Right. Okay. Then we talked about receiver. Then content and context. So let us not just lean on one of them, but let's figure out, how do I bring all this into the mix of the meal that I want to serve. I've used that as an analogy. All of us in one way or another will want to make a meal. So you have all these beautiful ingredients. The when to use an onion versus when to use Royco. When do I mix it? When do I put in the meat or the beans or the vegetable? What kind of heat do I need? Those are the ingredients that constitute effective communication. Right? Are there questions, feedback up to this point before we move on to the next stage of our conversation today? Feel free. Our online audience, please drop in a message. For those of us who are here in person, feel free to ask, comment. Yes, sir. Please introduce yourself if you don't mind.
My name is Bonwayne Nyongesa. I wanted to say something about the tonnage, the tone.
The tone. Please
The
speak to us
message.
about that.
Yes. You know, there is a way you're giving a message, but your tone might be misinterpreted.
Right.
Yes. So I thought you can say something about
Very true. That's a very powerful message there that you have just shared. Feedback, again, the tone of your voice. Now, it is one thing to attempt to tune my tone when I'm talking to you in person. Because then I can tell by your body language, are you smiling? Are you looking at me with, pleasing eyes or terrorist kind of eyes? Do you want to shoot and throw the seat at me? Right? But what if it's an email? Do we ever think of the tone of written communication? Right? Again, it is one thing when I'm talking to you in person. You can tell Alex is smiling, and you probably, you feel obliged to smile back at me, right? And you nod. But what if it's an email that goes through from one inbox to another inbox? I've never met you. The only thing I have is an email address, your email address, that's all. I probably know you're a lady or a man, that's probably it. Right? But the tone, something that we need to think through. So it is not just when we are meeting and talking in one-on-one, but also then when we are relaying. It could equally be the video. What tone? What body language? What would somebody take it if I'm pocketing my hand? It's meant to be an audience, a potential client, but they're very specific that pocketing, you're too authoritative. You're folding your hands. You're aloof. You're keeping yourself off. You don't want to relate with us. Are those thoughts that you're, things that you're thinking through prior to either writing, typing, voicing your message? All of us in one way or another may have received a call. You probably called somebody and you're excited to tell them about your upcoming graduation or promotion, and then the person on the other end just receives, you're calling, hey, hi. Hi. And you're like, hi, hi, hi. Have you ever pulled your phone forward to look and check, did I call the right person or did I, Because while you expected the person on the other end to receive the same way, right? You don't. The person on the other end. But then again, remember, we are not going to judge them, because what if you found them, the receiving? What state are they in? What form of an orientation have they just recently or currently being exposed to? How do you tone yourself down to come to their level and still hopefully be able to express or communicate the good news, but also being empathetic? Right? That while you have relayed what you have relayed, have they also felt there is an emotional connection? You just didn't take their time, but they gave you time and they have come out better as well. So tone is very important. And maybe just to belabor, it is one thing, and I've seen this over and over, that the dress code is vital. And yes, I could not agree more. It is very, very important, right? That emphasis is there a lot. I need to look the moment, but what about my tone? What about my facial expression? Am I taking time to engage with you? Am I listening to understand? Right? Or am I listening to offer a solution? I bet the first is better, to understand, then now offer the solution. But in most cases or not, we listen to, as creatives and as artists, to our clients with the hope of providing them with a solution. But have we genuinely understood their call for us? What is it that they are in need of from us? That is very important. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Any other? Any other before we move to the next part of our conversation tonight? Right? If not, then we are going to move on to the next part of our conversation tonight, which is on communication styles. Communication styles. Forgive me, my online audience. I reckon my focus is a lot on the people here. I'm almost forgetting that we have the online audience. You guys are looking fantastic. You guys are looking, in whichever form and place you are in, you're looking fantastic. And thank you for joining us tonight. Communication style. What is your understanding? Anyone can give it a try. You see, we never got it wrong earlier on when we said encoding and somebody said decoding. It was somewhere. Right. The methodology that we use, right? Okay, that could be one. Somebody else? The methodology that we use. Or is it the media? Right? Okay, I will take that to be like a rhetoric question. Methodology or the media? Now, without going into a lot of the nitty-gritties about communication styles, each one of us embody a certain way that we communicate, express our thoughts and views, our ideas. Your way of doing it is completely different from mine. Let's try and break that down a little bit. If I've been brought up in e.g., an abusive family, for instance, however good of my work sometimes or is considered to be, by the end consumer, the recipient, your client, my client, they come to me, but they're always like, if I could get another one. Or you could be the leader of the team, but they keep on insisting they want the junior to work, and you're like, I'll fire you. Why are they coming to you? If you're struggling with releasing your juniors from meeting with the clients or understanding what is it that they like in them that probably causes a repulsion of some sort from me. Right? So you've come from an abusive family, not because you want to be considered to be this in how you talk or communicate, but just because of that orientation, it has made you to push away some few clients. Now, again, from a point of creatives and artists, that is something we are not, we don't take time to ask ourselves. Is it just my work that they love? Or assuming they would have another option, would they go for another option because of how I communicate with them? And so sometimes we are losing a business opportunity to maybe your mentee, right? And you're thinking, I mentored them. My work still stands out, but your mentee is keen to call back and receive feedback. Right? They were out to understand, not just merely offer solution. They came to Peter, and Peter just told them, you want a film? I have my team. I have the lighting, I have the mics, I have the PS. And the client is like, yes, I know you have all that, but can you give me a chance to explain? So they go for your mentee, which is okay, right? Unless you have a hang-up, right? That your mentee cannot be as better and as good as you are. And if anything, if they become better than you are, that just says that you delivered, right? Again, that's another conversation, from us as artists. How often do we look back and ask ourselves, are we mentoring the next generation, right? A different conversation. But, so because of our orientation, the friendships that we have held, or have had, the school that we attended, away from just families, right? The age bracket that I'm in, right? All those are things that dictate, unknowingly sometimes, how we communicate. And so today we are going to look at 4 particular styles of communication. And it is important for us then to start, what I would encourage us to do at the end of this session, is to go further and try to delve deeper, right? And understand what is my style of communication. Now, one that we all aspire to become or to achieve as a style of communication, and we will talk at length about it, is assertive communication. Am I an assertive communicator? Right? That is what we all aspire. Right? Then we have another one. This particular person, type of a communicator, his style is passive. All right? Now, note, it's a two-way traffic. So the communicator and the style could be you, the artist, the creative, as well as your client. So having an understanding of the various types of communication styles helps you to understand what it is they're saying by knowing when to ask questions, when not to interrupt when they are talking, when to interrupt when they are talking, and when to hold back until they are done. So that you can have a seamless way of communicating by both parties, right? So we have talked of what we aspire is assertive, then the second one is passive. Then we have another one, aggressive, right? Aggressive. That is another type of a style. Then we have the last one, which is passive-aggressive. Passive-aggressive. Now, let's try and break them down. And maybe then you can start thinking about yourself. Right? Right? Before you start thinking about your client. So this is a challenge to us as creatives and as artists. You see, remember what I said earlier. We are oriented to believe, which is okay, but may not be okay in some instances, that we have got it all. We've got it all together. We have the solution. We have the ideas. We have besides the equipment, and we have it all together. And sometimes we don't think there are areas that we need to improve and be better in. Right? So the assertive communicator sometimes is confused for being commanding. Right? Being commanding. Now, it is important for us to understand who are assertive communicator, as a communication style, what it is about and what it entails, for us to understand then about these other three. But that is a myth. That being an assertive communicator, that you are a commandeering person. Now, that could easily be misconstrued because of maybe even the tone that you're using, your body language, right? But in actual sense, an assertive communicator is somebody who is able to articulate his thoughts and ideas in an easy way that can be understood by everyone, and almost leaving no room for us to experience thwarted expectations, unmet expectations. So you're using the right tone, you're using the right language, right? You have done your homework to understand what it is that you want to communicate, and you're being brief, but not leaving out any key detail. So this could be one-on-one. This could be, again, also via email. So you're being assertive, that the recipient, the receiver, when they read, it is clear what it is that your intent was that you wanted to relay. And how do you base that? When finally the output is exactly what you had hoped for. Right? Right? Okay? So that is an assertive. I'm just trying to make it as clear and as easy to understand. All right? So it is okay to be clear that, Peter, I would appreciate that you be arriving at the client's office 10 minutes ahead of time. It's different from when, Peter, you're always late. Right? Look at the distinction and the difference between the two. Right? Peter, if you can, I would really suggest, please always arrive 10 minutes ahead of time. Peter, you're always late. Na tutakosana? What have you done to that person? That could be your colleague. So Peter arrives at the client's place, but his mood has been distorted. Better still, he's in the right mood. It could be one or either, right? That it could be, he could be in the right mood because of how he was addressed the evening before visiting this client. He appreciated that, you know what, based on how I've come to know this client as your leader, they always appreciate if we get there on time. So he's able to plan. It could be, it is not his intent to always be late, right? Well, there are those chronic latecomers, right? And we need to work on that, right? But it could also that he may never have received feedback on what the client would expect of them. Right? So that is being assertive. Arrive. So he arrives there, he's in good mood, he's able to hold a good meeting or execute his assignment the best way possible. Better still, he's there in a foul mood and just places the camera there, and I'm not using a good cameraman today as an example, he's doing a fantastic job, right? He's not just there in a mechanical, robotic way. Let me set up the camera. You want to talk? It's an interview. Talk. All right? To the extent that if assuming they needed to button up, you're not even communicating with them. You're not telling them that they need, or probably they have something on their face. Why? Because of how it was communicated to you. How, when you are leaving the office, was communicated to you. Right? Assertiveness. Knowing the right language and the right tone to use to express what otherwise could be misconstrued as a negative feedback, but then otherwise making it easy to ingest as positive feedback. Right? That is assertive. Then we have this other interesting style. Passive communicator. So we have, what's your good name? Naomi. Good. So let's take it that Naomi is, she's a creative, she's an artist. And the neighbor sitting right next to her has just recently bought a Cayenne, right? I would expect the neighbors to be smiling. I didn't say which neighbor, right? And Naomi is thinking, I know the kind of work that they do, and I can actually be able to do more or less the same. So you know what? My target is to get a Cayenne. Well, question is it a new one or is it one on a photo in a magazine? Right? That's what I know Naomi, right? And as well, I use Naomi as an example. Naomi is relative here, again, right? Think of yourself as we try to discuss and break down the whole concept or aspect of passive communicator. So you have aspirations, but you don't seem to realize them. Is it in the tools of trade, the physical hardware that I'm missing out on? No. I've invested. Even recently, I got a loan and I managed to buy all this kind of gear that my immediate neighbor has. So my work should be as good as them. We went to the same college. We were trained by the same lecturer, right? And so my work should be as good. But why am I not realizing my personal goals of probably living a better life or acquiring the Cayenne? Right? And so the passive communicator, what they do, and in the example that I've used, a job that you ought to bid at 10 mil, right? A client quickly suggests, no, let's do it at half the amount. No. Let's do it far lower. Let's do it at 1 mil. Right? And what do? You agree to that without putting a case forward for you, that the reason why 10 mil is better than the 1 mil. You agree because one, either you are fearful that you're going to lose this job, right? And this is a client you would want in your profile, right? So you agree to 1 mil and you have brought together the whole battalion of the best of the best. You have brought Karakana together. They have come, you need to pay them. What do you take home? Right? So they continue buying the second Cayenne, but you're now you're still, some people will tell you, after college, some of us were employed by KTN. With all the love, we are not referring to the media house, but we were employed by Kenya Tamaking Network. All right? Okay? Right? Okay? So you're wondering, how is it that they're on a four-wheeler while I'm doing my KTN on this, on this side? You are agreeing to everything without putting a case forward just because you are fearful of losing this opportunity. Right? So that's a classic example of a passive communicator. They do not want to be in bad books with anyone. They are people pleasers. Right? They are pleasers even amongst themselves with their colleagues. Right? So Peter wants to head and watch his Liverpool versus Man City game, where obviously Liverpool is to win. They won. All right? And so he leaves you to do the back of the remaining work when he ought to have been with you. But what do? You agree. You end up getting home late. You are late for the next assignment the following day. But you're not expressing, hey, I would really love if you could also be sparing and sacrificing the match so that we just do this together and we all live at the same time. Passive communicator, right? So we are aspiring to be assertive, but because of our orientation, we become passive. So we are not blaming ourselves, but it could also be the client as well. They have given you a brief of what they want, but you honestly know that I can deliver more at the same budget that they have. What stops you from delivering that? Or maybe communicating with them. They could be, on the other hand, the passive. Oh, it's only one frame that you can get for me. But you actually know I've not only made my profit, I can actually give them 3 frames. What have you done? You have expressed to them, with that budget, I will not only be able to give you an A4, I'll give you an A3, I'll give you an A1. But because you have also done your math, and you're able to retain are good. So you're understanding yourself, but you're also going out of your way to understand what kind of a communicator is my client or my potential client. Right? So assertive, passive. Then we have another one. Yes, sir. Online community, yes. Sure.
The comment is it's a little bit from a bird's eye view, so you might just go on and then know where to chip in about it. It's from our friend Nzisamuli. Says great insights, and then the second comment: we are mentoring the young. Are we mentoring the next generation? Therein lies the gap. This should be talked about. There are many stories from those who have tried and frustrated by the seeming futility of their effort. Are we mentoring the next generation in terms of communication and all that? So
fantastic. That's a good
From,
feedback and
Zisa.
good comment. Thank you. Thank you. That's a good one. We'll address it. We'll address it at some point. Assertive, passive. Now we move on to aggressive. Right? Now, if you can allow your creative mind to process through what aggressive communicator is, what would be a quick conclusion about what who an aggressive communicator is likely to be? Oh, kichwa ngumu. Right. I like that. All right. Kristen, what is your view of what an aggressive communicator, what kind of traits would they manifest? A bully. Look at that. Domineering. Well, you probably are the only other person now. Right. Seems like this one is an interesting one, right? No pressure though. So, passive, you have said they avoid friction. Right? They are peacemakers, quote unquote. They're in pursuit of peace at the sacrifice of. Right? So where do you fall? Do you know when to say yes, but in a professional manner? Do you know when to say no, but in a professional manner? I'll give you a case in mind. I executed a certain assignment and there were some delays with the execution of the payment. Right? And I was getting a bit agitated. Now, there was an option of being annoyed at the client for delays, and we've all experienced this. And there was an option, and so communicating in a certain manner, right, which could have led to one thing, lose the client, depending on how I would have expressed myself to them because of the anger or the frustration, right, that I was experiencing, whichever type of emotion. But then there would also have been, for me to be empathetic and try and understand, this is not normal for this to happen. What could have orchestrated this? Right? So let me not allow the frustrations to get the best of me and lose out on this client, but attempt to understand. Right? And I remember talking to a friend of mine, and he shared a wise counsel, and he told me, what if you don't feel like this could be a client you want to retain, a strategy could be, don't use harsh words, never burn your bridges. Right? As creatives and as artists, we tend to do this a lot. Menicheleweshea bana. What is all this? It is never that serious. And even those of us who are in technical field, come on. I have other clients. I have other potential clients to pursue. Why? But remember, as the old saying, never burn the bridge. Never burn the bridge. It's a very small world. Right? This could be the very bridge that you'll want. Somebody somewhere would tell me, particularly in employment or career or opportunities, let's use the example of opportunities, what you'll be leaving behind, it's the same monkey but in a different forest. So you're just merely leaving one forest, but you're going to find the same monkeys. Hopping from one tree to another the same way, making the same, noise the same way. So while you are running from this, how many times then will you continue running? Not unless you learn how to tweak your approach, right, and your disposition, right? So it was for me then, going back to that example, to think through, am I going to be assertive, communicate, but in a professional manner, my frustrations, with a hope that they would express back and tell me we are delaying because of this? Better still, was I going to be a passive communicator and opt to lose out what they hadn't maybe intended to hold back, but because of some technicalities that necessitated the delay, the intent was never to hold back. They were eventually going to pay, but because of these unforeseen, circumstances required them to delay. But because I've decided to become a passive communicator, I decide, don't even pay me, I understand. Right? And you forgo that payment when they had purpose to pay you. Right? If anything, I've just done another job, but when they call you again, you still go. What have you done? You have planted a seed that the next time we can delay, and we know you will tell us, ni sawa, I can do without. All right? But note, the saying ni sawa could also communicate something. What if they are getting from you, you are a proud person? Oh, our money is not that important to you. Okay, we'll actually now give it to another person who is willing to take our money. Their challenge is not in paying you. The technical hitches that came about necessitated that they could delay. But because you said this, and depending on the words you used, they're like, wait, you don't love your job as we thought you do. You're not the kind of partner we want to work with. So you know what? All right? Let's go further now, then look at, with using the same example, to the aggressive communicator, who somebody has said domineering, right? Kichwa ngumu, or bully. Yeah? Back in the day, we had bullies in the high schools and whatnot, right? An aggressive communicator, note, we are not blaming it on an individual. Neither are we blaming ourselves. We are not killing ourselves for being the aggressive or the passive and not an assertive. Our orientation is otherwise what has brought us to becoming these people. And why we are having this conversation then is so that we can start doing self-audit and asking ourselves very pertinent questions on what do I aspire to become? Am I there yet, or am I work in progress? Right? So an aggressive communicator, going back to that example that I've used, would have been easy for me to write, mnaweza kaa na hiyo pesa yenu. I don't need your money. To hell with your money. Just don't even communicate. I block you, and use all manner of words. You think you're the only. Right? All right? That's an aggressive. Right? Better still, an aggressive as a leader, without taking time to understand who your cameraman personality is, right? Your admin person is, your person in the kitchen, trying to understand who are they, you push them. You're pushing them. Could it be that the person behind the camera is easy? You can push me, I work best under pressure, for instance. All right? The other person will not take it kindly when you push them, because it reminds them of something or an incident or a situation. Remember, we are talking about our communication style is as a result of our orientation. So how am I communicating with the people I'm working with, right, and expect them to deliver without being cognizant or sensitive or alert to that the words I use could hurt them or bring alive some bad memories, if not good memories, right? So attempting to understand your team is equally as important as also understanding your client. You may not have the greater opportunity to fully understand your client, but if you just bring yourself to a place of, I'm separating my emotions from this. I'm not going to be rude while you're rude, right? So an aggressive one will push the team members So every so often, they are leaving your business, maybe. Your business may not be the biggest that you can pay them $1 million, and they may be aware of that, but they're happy being with you because you create the best kind of an environment in how you communicate with them. But then because you're not alert to how you when they even give you feedback, hey, you know what you said, how you put it out? What you said versus how you put it out, it could be sometimes totally different. Right? I want a glass of water. So the what is okay, you want a glass of water. But it's another thing for you to deliver the glass of water. You could not find a gray cup. Did you have to take 10 minutes? What if there was a queue? What if the dispenser wasn't working? What if they actually met with your top dollar client on their way to fetching water for you? And they had to meet and understand what the client has come to come for. All right? And so they're protecting your business, but you're quick to make some deductions and conclusions on why they never brought water in a gray glass, or a yellow one, or a blue one, or better still, why they were late. What if they tripped on their way? What if they had to use the washroom? Right? Aggressive communicators, but we are not blaming it on them. What do they say today? We say or we talk, but we don't? Right? Okay. Right? I guess that's what they say nowadays, right? Right? Okay. So who am I? Am I an aggressive? Am I a passive? And the aggressive sometimes is equally the pushover. Right? It's either you buy it at 130 million or buy it. Right? You're not even concerned about their need. Their problem is not even about spending 130, but are you meeting them at their need level? Right? But the way you are putting out that proposal, and even when you're having the meeting in the boardroom or whichever place you get to meet, you're a pushover. No, it has got to be this. They are insisting, I need you to come with 3 cameras. But you articulate and understand too well, 2 cameras are more than enough. How do you express it to your client? You know what, for this kind of an assignment, as a matter of fact, 1 camera is more than enough. Without telling them, boss, I know my trade. I'm only coming with 1. Or better still, you come with 1 without having to explain why you thought it was prudent for you to do that. Right? I hope you're getting something out of this. Right? The last one. Passive aggressive. I dare say I fear this particular category. I dare say I fear this particular category. I don't fear the person who manifests these particular tendencies, but I fear that characteristic. Right? Why? Let's go back. How did we define our passive? Ni sawa tu. All right? It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Right? How have we defined our aggressive communicator? Kichwa ngumu. I really love the way she's, I think today has been one of those days when she may have had a kichwa ngumu kind of, we're not going to say client, all right? But yeah, all right? So let's now try and marry the two. So who is this kind of a passive-aggressive communicator? What kind of characteristics are they bound to manifest? Crafty. Goodness, this guy. I mean, the kind of choice of words, right? Right? Christine, I love the expression on your face. What is in your mind? Oh, silent criminal. Must have watched a lot of movies. Naomi, yeah? Yeah, no, but you seem to have a follower, On your TikTok right now, you have a like, Right? Peter? And trusting. Oh, that's a very interesting one. And you should have seen him where that has come from the recesses of his. He was looking up to the heavens. Where does my help come from? Right? You know, where does my help come from? He needed the answer. Trust me, you got it. We all got it. Why I said that I fear this tendency that in form of characteristic, but not the person, they are quite manipulative. Who are you as an artist? Who are you as a creative? In this particular conversation that we are having today, effective communication, and I now want you to bring it closer home. While we looked at how to construct the right message, the process, right? Now let me bring myself on the spot. Let me put myself on the spot. Am I not meeting my objective because I don't clearly communicate properly? My tone may be right, but I have not taken time to put my thoughts together the right way. So then I'm having a lot of unmet expectations. Hence, I'm not an assertive communicator. Better still, I'm losing out on the growth of my business because I am a passive communicator. I agree to everything and nothing and not to nothing. Because I'm afraid I'm going to lose this client. Because I want to please this client. Where do you stand? Are you the type that does not express your command for your artistry, abilities, and creative abilities? And you're letting people walk over you, right? And take advantage of you. When if you had shown and expressed a sense of command of your industry, you'd have easily have caught the attention of the client. Right? Or are you an aggressive communicator? Or are you that your client sits back and appreciates that you have a command? And yes, you have come around and you have shown your profile. My clients are da. All the big names. But if they do some background checks, you probably just did one assignment and never to go back for a second one. And probably then they concentrate on that and start wondering why. But then they get the answer based on how you communicating with them. You are interrupting them when they are communicating. You just want the business. But there's no emotional connection at all. There's no bargaining room that you're providing to your client just because you are aggressive. And so then we have this passive, aggressive communicator. So Peter has been called upon to produce this amazing movie. And he has said, I can do it. Yes, Peter? Come on now. Right. What did you tell me you're having a meeting with Taylor Perry? Come on. All right, we'll have that conversation. Right. All right. And he agrees to this. The passive side. Remember, but his boss, on the other hand, had annoyed him the day before. So that could be our cameraman right behind there. Right? Or better still, it's the other way around. The cameraman agrees to set up the cameras and everything, the lighting, perfect. And Peter is out here, he has told the client, you know what, we are going to get this done in the next couple of days. In fact, I'm not over-promising, neither am I, I'm not going to under-deliver. Neither am I going to over-promise, but I'm going to over-deliver, when you finally deliver the work, right? You know what I'm talking about. But because you had pissed off your cameraman, he's there, he has set up everything, and yes, he has actually recorded. The guy suddenly receives a call and an emergency, in this case, purportedly emergency, and walks out with the SD card, with the footage. Had agreed, seemed to work with you as a team. The rest of the people are like, my goodness, this one, we are nailing it. But because of something he's carrying, right? Passive, but aggressive. Walks out, switches off his phone, has the SD card. The interview is done, the client has walked away. You had promised to deliver it in 2 days, but in your mind you wanted to deliver it in 1 day. It turns out to 1 month. I'm using these as classic examples. It is very relatable, right? Okay? You have decided. Let's bring it closer home. Again, because the client decided to delay my payment, I decided the next assignment I will not say no to it. But right? Okay. I can see most of us what we do. I will not point at who. Yeah? Right? Okay? You're like, I will take up the next assignment. In fact, you even call them for coffee. The client. You entertain them. You take them to the best of the hotel where you can afford. You have the marketing fee. Amount is set aside. You take them just so that you can get even with them. Right? So they come, they give you the next assignment. What do you decide to do? To delay? Never pick their calls? Right? And so on and so forth. I've used just that, but as an example. I'm not necessarily saying that that is where we are. But these are the types or the styles of communicators that we have amongst us. Either amongst us or we are. And so it's on us and upon us to go back and do self-audit and ask ourselves, who am I when it comes to communicating with my clients? Am I, number one, adopting the communication process that we discussed? Am I thinking through as a sender, as the source? Am I an authority in this particular subject matter? Am I in the right space to even put together the message? Am I able to encode it? Have I thought through of the channels? Have I thought of how will it be decoded? Have I thought of the receiver, the recipient? Have I thought of the feedback that was shared with me by the previous client? How can I use that feedback to make this assignment better than the last one? Because of any of your assignment, the best one is your current one. But am I making use of that feedback to help me do better in my current one? And that while I have the content, am I within the context? Right? I've just shared that in a summary as a way of closing down our conversation today, but as I get ready to invite comments and feedback, and am I an assertive communicator? Am I a passive communicator? And why am I that? If assuming I'm a passive communicator, what is the root cause for me being this? I'm not going to kill myself, but hopefully maybe then if I understand what is the root cause of this, I can better myself to becoming a passive and an assertive communicator instead. Right? Am I an aggressive communicator? What form of an orientation may I have been exposed to that made me become this? Is this what is causing people to repel, my colleagues to repel? Or is it the reason why people say I'm so manipulative? Because I'm passive? aggressive communicator? Who am I as an artist and as a creative? I open the floor to feedback, to questions, to comment. Anyone? Even the online viewers, you're welcome to share your feedback, your thoughts. And there was a question as we may be thinking through on what to share. There was a question earlier on shared by Anderito, by one of our online viewers. Are we mentoring the next generation? I have attempted to respond to that question in a way of asking ourselves first, where am I at to be able to pour out? So that by the time I'm saying I'm pouring out, what is it that I'm pouring out? In form of mentorship. Right? Have I come to the place of learning to become an effective communicator so that then the next generation that I'm working with becomes even better, far better, effective communicators because I have worked on myself? Have I shown them the beauty and the power of receiving feedback? And putting everything into context. And becoming curious. Where am I at? So my attempt to respond was in an indirect manner, but it all starts with us even then as we think through on whether I'm addressing the needs of the incoming generation or the current generation or those that will ever aspire. Where am I at? It always and should always, must always, I dare say so, in a very polite manner, that it starts with me. I can either pour out as a mentor poison, or I can alternatively pour out life. So, question is, while I'm in pursuit of mentoring, what am I feeding them with? Is it something that is killing me or causing me to thrive? Self-audit. Back to the floor and back to our online viewers. Feedback and comments. I see there's a lot of shaking of heads for at least my audience here, right? Right? I don't know whether you're thinking of what to pick from the floor and throw it at me. I think I need to call the proprietor of Karakana and just tell him my life is in danger right now, right? Right? Anyone, any feedback? I think it's important. We are practicing what we've just gotten to discuss. Not really learn from me, but learning from each other and from one another.
Mine is not necessarily a question, but it's a comment and this has been quite an insightful session. First of all, for the fact that sometimes when we communicate, we do not really think about the steps that you've taken us through. And maybe with practice, then sometimes it will be so easy just to put everything together before you disseminate information. And I have to admit personally, there is so much to learn from. And clearly, I have seen a lot of my tendencies. I will say where.
We don't judge.
We don't judge, yes.
Yeah.
I've seen myself. And lastly, I think it's how you've even wrapped up your comment on that specific question. When you're mentoring these young people, are we pouring poison into them? And it always starts with me. By the end of the day, the desire is always the intention, the content, but what about the context? Are you in yourself, preparing yourself, before you go out there to mentor these young people? The intention is clear, it's very good, but then are you prepared to pour life into them instead of poison? That is something to learn from. So thank you for the session.
No, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's good feedback. I appreciate that. Right.
I would like to say that I've enjoyed the session, and maybe a question and maybe a comment. There are situations where you will need to be aggressive in communicating. And there are situations where you will need to be assertive. And there are situations you will need to empathize and be passive. How do you strike a balance in such circumstances?
Wow. Number one, thank you. That's a very profound feedback and question at the same time. What we aspire to become is an aggregation to an extent of these other three that may not necessarily seem to be positive traits. But how do we package them and not only make them look pleasing, but in actual sense feel pleasing? Sorry, right? Does that make sense? How can I embody being passive without necessarily being passive? How can I be aggressive without necessarily putting off someone? And more importantly, how can I command authority but not appear manipulative? And that's why then what we should all aspire is to becoming assertive by applying empathy, right? In how we approach our assignments, and our assignments are through human beings. The when, the where, and the how. The when am I addressing this? Is it after my colleague has just come back and they have buried a loved one? The where, is it at a club when I'm having drinks with my boys and my girls and I'm communicating feedback from a client? The how, is it an email? Is it a one-on-one? Is it a voice note? Those three things are now fully articulating and understanding what assertiveness is all about. Then you can apply these other three categories. But more importantly, then being able to draw them to yourself and not repelling them. I hope I've been able to respond to you. So in each one of these traits, there's a good and bad. How do we filter out? But more importantly, then we are left with being assertive. I think that's in many words that I'm trying, what I'm trying to put across. Right? Good. Yeah? Somebody is in need of a mic there.
Hi, my name is Gabriel. I think what has actually stood out for me is the docket. Most of the time we are given feedback, but it's like I have a switch for getting the feedback for what I want to give you. So I think the feedback points I have, it's always like a pinch, but today it has actually make me see it's not always about me. Like, if I have taken a client, my work is to make sure that I deliver for you, not to you by the end of the day. So the point of feedback, that has stood out for me in different aspects. Thank you for that.
Amazing, amazing. I don't know whether you people have picked out the prepositions she has used to describe, to deliver to you and for you. What I take from that, there is one that has no connection. It's just but a mere assignment. It's just but a mere meeting. For you, there is a connection, an emotional appeal. I'm not just doing this, I'm invested in this. And there's a spirit of excellence that backs what I do, because I want to retain you passed this particular assignment. That's powerful feedback. Thank you for that, Barry. Right? Any feedback from here? Maybe we can go online. Mr. Nderito? Nderito? Okay. Feedback from the online viewers? Okay, very good. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for giving me time to share with us what I'm continuously learning. Because each one of us is in a journey of life to discover and to learn new things. Something I picked somewhere that I thought I'd want to leave us with today. A quote, anonymous. Now, go forth and communicate your art with clarity, passion, and purpose. It's been a delight and a joy to have been before you to share a piece of what I consider effective communication. Alex Gabriel is my name. Kwaherini.
Find that uh, these things can help us to be better. I mean, and the hardest part is that every time we've had sessions, the first time we were with a gentleman who's here called George. If you haven't watched, go and watch. It's about discovering your purpose, but as a foundation for personal branding as a creative. At the end of every session, I'm like, I hope you just realize how much you need to find out more about an issue. You get? Because when you talk about like something like purpose, there is so much to dig, not just scratch the surface, dig about yourself, people around you, the things you want. The second one, we had fashion designer talking to about business. And she mentioned like the 5-6 pillars of running a successful business. There are so many I haven't given attention, so many things I haven't given attention, so that my business can be more successful. Tuache kupata hii stress ya broke artist syndrome and so many other pressures. Then you come to communication. Unaanza tu kurealize, oh my God, what kind of a person am I? First, just yourself. How do you present? Unajua kuna hiyo watu wanasemanga, si ni mimi tu, si munikubali vile uko. Your sisters and brothers can accept you the way you are. Maybe your close friends. But other people may not understand. Clients I have worked with over the years, they know me. I mean, they know me. There are clients I have worked with for 15 years, 10 years. They may know me. But if I meet somebody new, or even in our creative industry space, Peter, for instance, there are people you're working with. They are not clients. They just know how to collaborate now. Mtu anasema, huyu siwezi fanya project na anakaa sura ngumu tu, you know, things like that. So I think we had finished the feedback and comments from the team. Alex, I really want to appreciate. Perhaps today is the first time. He's also a personal friend. It's the first time that I've heard him deliver something very structured about his passion, because I know he also has passion about communication. He also does MCing, and I really want to appreciate the time you've taken to prepare. I know you've done this several times, so the more you do, the easier it becomes. The few of you who showed up, asanteni sana. Let's also appreciate the team from Photomagic. We have Dixon, we have Newton, we have Marvin on the live stream, and we have someone on social media on the other end called Faith, and the gentleman, actually Humphrey, kuja utuletee refreshments sasa, and the guys online who who have been following, the few of you and the many who will watch afterwards, asanteni sana. We are going to take a break because next week we will be observing, next Monday we'll be observing World Wildlife Day. We'll be at the Kenya National Theatre on Monday evening, and then we'll take a break for 2 weeks and we'll be back with our series. Asanteni sana, and let's enjoy the soda, tea, and biscuits. Thank you very much.